They finally did it. So Boeing and their travails, as it were, they've had a long ride with this one. This has been tough for Boeing. And don't forget, Boeing's history of the space program goes back to like the Apollo era, etc. They were one of the prime contractors, with NASA, working with NASA for decades now. But they've had a lot of issues, not only with the SLS, the Space Launch System, which has got its own set of problems and issues, and cost overruns and budget overruns, etc. The CST 100, which is they're calling it their 21st century space capsule. So it's basically designed to look almost like the Apollo command module. So similar kind of capsule design, a little bit larger than the Apollo CM was. Apollo CM was designed to hold 3 people. The CST 100 Starliner, which is only designed for low Earth orbit. Operations, so kind of bringing astronauts and cargo to and from the International Space Station. That's able to take up to 7 people. So technically this thing should have been flying and delivering astronauts to the space station for the last couple of years, much like SpaceX have been doing with the Crew Dragon. But they've had a lot of issues. So in 2019, they had an issue where the launch didn't go nominally. They didn't reach the orbit that was needed to dock with the ISS. So they had to kind of pull the mission completely. That then led to a whole load of changes and updates and rethinking, etc. And lots and lots of engineering changes and repairs. Then last year they had an issue before they'd even got off the ground where moisture got into some of the kind of propulsion system and wrought havoc with some of the valves. So it's not been an ideal few years for Boeing in terms of costs, etc. And then you've obviously got all Boeing Airlines issue with the 737 Max and the tragedies that have happened there. So they're not having a good time of it. Let's put it that way. So this one, OFT2, so this is Orbital Flight Test 2. So after the last one wasn't so successful, obviously it didn't work, and the one before that didn't work. This was their first kind of really serious attempt to get this, done and dusted. And it was pretty good. It's a 6-day mission. As I said, they'd had those 2 failures. So no crew on this one. It was, again, just an uncrewed kind of test flight. They did put Rosie Rocketeer, the mannequin, on board. So they put in a flight test dummy, as it were, strapped up to the eyeballs with all sorts of sensors, etc., to check things like G-forces and all sorts of things, make sure that it is going to be a comfortable ride for the between 4 and 7 astronauts that the thing is able to take, depending on what they've got in terms of cargo and crew configuration. So this one was predominantly designed to deliver cargo up to the ISS. It still had issues. So as it was approaching docking, they had realized that one of the thrusters that was designed for orbital maneuvers and its backup had both failed. So this caused a whole slew of issues, and they had to change. If anyone was watching the live coverage, there was a bit of a kind of standoff between the CST and the ISS for quite some time. That wasn't just down to the thruster issues, though. There's a docking ring, and the docking ring also didn't deploy on time. So they had that basically, which delayed the docking by an hour. So they've still got some things to iron out. Then it docked successfully. The crew on the ISS basically did a tour inside, checked Rosie's health status, did their crew cargo transfer, etc. Probably got rid of some of their rubbish, sent it back down. Then, I mean, the whole advantage with this, as opposed to Apollo was always designed really for a splashdown, for a landing in water. 3 parachutes, although if you remember with Apollo 15, only 2 of them worked, but it was designed for that. It was designed to take it. So you've got a combination of, again, 3 parachute system with this, plus the kind of retro thrusters that you have on some of the Soyuz spacecraft when they come down. And it's designed to be able to land on a hard surface without too much of an impact felt by the crew. And you look at obviously what Blue Origin are doing and even what SpaceX are doing in terms of their reusability and their, especially in Blue Origin's case with the capsule, landing, as it were, very similar technology, very similar concepts. The problem is, after it landed, it was leaking hydrazine. Now, hydrazine's not something you want to be anywhere near. There may be, because of these issues with the docking ring and the thrusters and the hydrazine leak, there may still need to be an uncrewed test flight. Who knows? I mean, they're hoping not. They're hoping that the next flight will be a crewed flight, because it's, this is a $4.3 billion contract that Boeing have got with NASA. And, this is supposed to be delivering, as I said, SpaceX have been delivering now for 2 years, crew with Crew Dragon. And their success rate in terms of launch and land and relaunch, to quote the famous song parody that was done about SpaceX, is now people don't even bat an eyelid. You know, if SpaceX blows up, it's more of a story than if they land. It's kind of, they just do it. They just land all the time, and pretty successfully. I don't know what you think, thoughts on this, Terry, in terms of Boeing's, you know, long-term prospects against SpaceX, because SpaceX, don't forget the costs. SpaceX have driven the cost down astronomically, pardon the pun, and this thing's still only designed for 10 missions.
Yep.
So after 10 missions, you can't use it again. Whereas SpaceX, you know, their cadence at the moment on some of their launches is up in that kind of number. So, and they're coming back obviously for atmospheric re-entry, refactoring, repurposing the spacecraft and launching again. So now, in what was it, a 2.5, 3 week turnaround? It was something ludicrous recently. I've forgotten the exact numbers.